Right, this is bike we're going to be having a go on today. It's my CB750 Honda single overhead cam. I've not had it particularly in a long time. It's a reasonably tidy bike. It's not concourse by any means at imagination, but it does for what I want. So anyway, we'll get off for a ride and I'll tell you a little bit more about it. Right, we're away now. Now this bike's an American import. I bought it from a friend who bought it off a lad. He'd bought it, he nicely got it all stripped down, and his mum and dad said, right, we're emigrating to Australia. So we sold the bike to my friend. My friend had it stood in his garage for approximately 20 years. I bought it off my friend in a cartload of cardboard boxes. Pretty much a complete bike, not a lot missing. Turned out to be not too bad to rebuild. No major disasters or anything like that. It's a 1974 K5. And not being a Puritan, I didn't like the big indicators which is normally on the K5. So I took them off and put K4 ones on. It's still got the American bars on. It's got 26,000 on clock, which I guess is somewhat accurate. I'm not sure, don't really know, don't really matter. I had one of these when I was in my teens. I had one of the F1s, not the K series. And of course they were like rocket ships back then, but not so fast now. Nice little bike for a ride round on. Adequate, keep up with modern day traffic reasonably. Brakes are not too bad. And of course it's got indicators on. It's electric start, so none of that kicking malarkey. What did I do at bike? Not really a great deal. I built wheels with stainless rims, stainless spokes. Engine I reassembled. Everything in engine were pretty much alright. The rings were stuck in the board, so I had to put no rings into it. But the crank were pretty good. All the bearings were alright. So luckily for me I didn't have to reshell crank. Lap torque valves in, that sort of stuff. Yeah, no stem seals, all that junk. Pretty much got it together, buttoned it up. More trouble with carbs than what else, couldn't seem to get them cleaned. I ultrasonicked them numerous times. Tried all sorts. I mean, I think it runs reasonably well, but the tick over's not quite as smooth as what I would have liked. But yeah, I can live with it, I think. It's quite interesting because back in day, the 850 Commando or the late, I'm not sure which, whether it was 750 or 850, but they come out and they won Bike at Year award over at 750 Honda, which I always found quite strange. I mean, I've never had a Commando, so, well, I say I never had one. That's somewhat part of this story. I'll ride this, see what we think of it, and then next video I do, I'll do the same trip on my 850 Commando and see what I think of that. Nah, I've never owned a Commando, never had a Norton, other than that old 16H which my father gave me. Anyway, I'll get on with the story. I went up at my mate's and he was selling a 500 Vela, and I had a bit of an inkling. My missus always loves the Velas, she thinks the looks the dog's nuts like, so anyway, up there goes to see him and he says, yeah, here it is. I had a look round it, he says, here, take it out, go out for a ride on it, take it for day like. So anyway, I gets out on this Vela like, lovely bike, you know, nice enough, no wrong with it, and I had it out for, I don't know, half a day, something like that, or a couple of hours anyway. Had a nice ride round on it, lovely bike, no wrong with it, but just not for me. I don't know, I can't really say what it was. I think it's the big single thing, it's not me. I mean, I was pretty much brought up on twin cylinder British stuff and 4-cylinder Jack Multis. Anyway, I once struck of it, so I took it back and said, look, I'm sorry, it's not really my cup of tea. And stood there in the corner of his workshop, he's got this 850 Commando. I said, oh, I've never had a go on one of them. He says, here, take this out then, see what you think of this. Anyway, got it cracked up, we got it out at workshop, and I buggered off with that for half a day. What a motor. I mean, I'd always rid Bonneville's and that sort of stuff, but this Commando, oh, it's a stonking piece of kit. Anyway, I went back and I coughed my money up and bought it, and to be quite honest, I run limited mileage on every bike and showed every bike to do 1,000 miles sort of thing. So by end of year, you know, I've done plenty of miles. Anyway, I've just about done 1,000 miles on the Norton, so that'll have to stand for a bit and I'll have to use something else for a little bit. But we'll get a test ride on it after this one, you know, next video. See what we think. I mean, they're a world apart, it's chalk and cheese. I can see why the Commando took Bike at Year award of at 750 Honda in some things, not all things. It's hard to describe the difference. This thing's a bit revvy. I mean, it pulls like a freight train, there's no up with it. But the Norton's such a lazy bastard. And as for vibrations, I mean, all British stuff I've ever had's a bit vibey like, but the Commando with the isoelastics is really quite smooth. And I would think at 70 miles an hour, the Commando's smoother than this. Might take a bit of believing, but that's the way I see it. But I did set the Commando up with the isoelastics a bit on the slack side, so it was smooth to the detriment of the handling. Apparently, if you tighten the isoelastics quite tight, you get a little bit of vibration, but they handle better. If you leave them slack, you get rid of some vibration and they don't handle quite as good. But anyway, we're on with this bike. Nice enough bike, comfortable. I'm not a big fan of the American bars, they're a bit high for me. If you've got so much wind blast in the chest, it, you know, it either makes your lower back ache on and you send into it, or your arms be hanging on one or other. But for this sort of whip, which is what I use it for, just bobbing round back lanes, it's a lovely little motor. This is the one, my missus has a little 250 Honda, and if she goes out on that, I'll follow her on this, or she'll follow me, one or other. And That's more often than not what I use it for. Put this little pack on back, chuck a flask in, couple of sarnies, and we're off for the day. I've actually found in life that if you keep the missuses happy, they're not too bad. I'll not get too much into details, but if you look at some at one of my earlier videos on one of my FJRs, I'll talk a little bit about restoration on this bike and how much money's in them and what have you and what ain't you. I mean, I'm not 100% sure on what the fetch. I mean, I reckon this bike's worth what? I think probably 8,000 quid ish. From what I've seen them advertised at, I mean, I don't know what people get for them. They advertise them for all sorts of amounts of money, but how much everybody actually gets, it's a different matter. It's quite a strange thing is these bikes. I mean, you remember, I mean, after a ride in a 1965 Bonneville and a 500 Honda, I bought the F1. And the brakes didn't seem bad. I mean, they were renowned for being terrible in wet, but they didn't seem so bad. But boy, they are so wooden these days. I don't know whether it's pads I've got in it or what like. I mean, it stops, but you've got to pull that lever some. Just not like a modern bike. It's same with handling, you know, I mean, it's not bad. But if you remember in the 70s, it almost like frame were joined together with two bits of rubber pipe or something. You know, they seem to be all over the place. You get a big corner and they almost felt a bit loose. Well, it's just like that. It's like going straight back into the 70s. Oh, in my case, 70s, 80s. Anybody who's watching this video will probably know where I'm heading. I'm headed up to my local haunt for an afternoon cup of tea. See if a few mates is there, we'll have a bit of a natter. Then I should get me sent back home to get my missus's tea made for when she finishes work. Which is another way of saying keep the wives happy. My trouble with these bikes is I'll ride one of my British bikes and gears on Nortons. For people who don't know, people who know, you know, just ignore this, but on the Norton the gear change is on the right and it's one up and the rest down, and it's a 4-speed box. This is on the left and it's one down, rest up. I go on my Bonneville, that's on the right and that's one down, rest up. Then, you know, it's just amount of times I stand up brake lever, gear lever and that sort of thing. I know that's not, you know, doesn't sound always safe, but I sometimes, by the time I've had about 10 minutes or half an hour, I'm not bad, I can remember. Looks like we might get a bit of rain, or it might odd off. But look over there, there's a few clouds. Now this bike, I can't say I like to ride it, but I don't like to take it out when roads is mucky, because there's a lot of cleaning on it. When the weather's not so good, I normally use the 850 Commando because it's an unrestored bike. And when I say unrestored, yeah, it's had tank painted, panels painted, odd bit touched up hot frame. Still not original wheels, obviously exhaust systems new. But the only trouble is when you've done them up, you end up with them nice and tidy and you don't want to use them. Or you don't want to use them in bad weather. What I tend to do with mine is, over winter, I pull one bike to the front, service it, clean it, polish it, all that sort of stuff. Do everything what I think it needs. Normally get chains off, put them in a bit of link life and all that sort of stuff. And then I'll shove that in corner, put a couple of sheets over it, and then move to the next one. And over winter I managed to get them all serviced and all cleaned, and then through the summer months when I'm riding them I just give them a spray over with a bit of polish and give them a wipe off. I very rarely wash any. I've taken to using a bit of that waterless wash stuff. Just give them a spray over and wipe the bugs off when you take them back in, and if they don't get settled they're not so bad to get off. I've got to admit, the switchgear on this is a damn sight better than bloody Commando. God, I don't know who thought of them indicator mechanism on Commando, but bloody horrible. Right, I've had my cup of tea, so we'll get off home now. Told you I don't want to be late, I've got to get Mrs.'s tea on. Looks like farmers has been out, doesn't it? Up here the other day on one of my old Matuluses and I lost a part off it, so every time I come down here I'm looking at sides of the road to see if I can see this part. It took me hours to bloody make it. Thought of remaking it, it's a pain in the backside, to be honest. I mean, when I was courting, my wife's from Knaresborough, and every other night I'd be off up to Knaresborough. So, you know, I mean, you got some miles in with them. And going up A1 and home on a night, you know, you'd be coming home at 12 o'clock and there wouldn't be a thing on bloody road, you know. You could come home and not pass a car on A1. You know, or if you did, you might pass one or two. But you shove these things down there at 90, 100 mile an hour, they never seem to bother for it. First time I've ever noticed green on a number plate. I take it that's what they're doing for electric cars now.